Yeah, I wrote you that message this morning. Um, I'm gonna take your whatever all the stuff you shared. I didn't get a chance this morning to do that.
Uh-huh.
But I can take all the stuff you shared, plus of course the today's meeting summary from the Fathom, and I'll try to find alignment
Mm.
with what I'm doing between what you're saying. So like I said, I've
Yeah.
submitted that proposal to Lysinka to get the SEPA plan underway under basically aligned with our framework. So we're in this process of putting together or soon anyway. We haven't really started yet for the Canada Global South uh, Ideas Forum for next summer.
Mhm.
So that's where we want to basically showcase many of these concepts for, again, the post AI economy, post jobs economy, like you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Let me
seeing
get
if we
the
can
meeting
set
here.
up at least a parallel system.
Yeah, let me get the meeting here officially started, and then we can discuss those. I don't know if it was a good idea to say, hey, let's just continue our discussions from last week because they were quite positively received, I felt. But so we'll see if who might be joining us. But at least this way we have the recording. So, ding.
I'm looking,
Uh, Yeah.
Ding, thank you. I'm looking,
Officially
I'm
started?
looking at, yeah, officially. I'm looking at the notes and it says here Ramatu added read.ai meeting notes to the meeting. So that's what's going on,
Ah.
plus instructions on how to disable it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Ramatu. I don't know who's Ramatu.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar, so there's probably somebody I send an invite to. At any rate, ding, I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. So I declare this meeting on 6 September 2025 to be open. Our discussion for today, our topic for today, is a continuation of the topic we were discussing last week. And that is based on the upcoming World Summit for Social Development, the second World Summit for Social Development, which is scheduled for the beginning of November of this year in Doha, Qatar. And we uh, the that summit was called for by the Secretary General when he introduced our common agenda in 2021. So the reason for it was because it is considered that we have failed so greatly in achieving the goals of that first summit that was held in 1995 in Copenhagen. And at the time, that was the largest assembly of world leaders the world has ever seen. And it contributed significantly to the establishment of the Millennium Development Goals, which have now morphed into the Sustainable Development Goals, which are in the process of not being achieved either, or significantly not being achieved. And so the idea is that the second summit is intended to reaffirm commitment to the goals of the first summit, which were ending poverty, full and meaningful employment for everyone, and inclusion, global inclusion. And those are the three primary goals that came out of that meeting. That was somewhat of a surprise consensus, I think. At any rate, here, the call for the second summit now was because we are so far off the target in being able to achieve the SDGs, for example, which flowed out of all of that. Um, the specifically some of the things that were mentioned for the second summit were that reaffirmation of ending poverty, of meaningful jobs for all, and the inclusion, global inclusion. Um, I posted here for the invite last week, and I included them on this, a number of papers that we did. We had AI summarize a lot of the preparatory work being done for the summit, the upcoming summit, as well as sort of a critique of the agenda for the summit to say, hey, is does this make sense? And one of the things that came out of that was that the idea of putting a lot of effort into the creation and the protection of jobs for humans as the cornerstone of how we will create the equality and eliminate the poverty and so forth is unrealistic. Given here the advances in AI and robotics and other automation, and given the fact that that is just the result of huge investments by the entire marketplace, if you would, in trying to reduce labor costs. So it seems paradoxical that we would have a conference to say, how can we get everybody to have better jobs when most of the investment is going into eliminating the jobs? That doesn't seem reasonable. And looking at the advances that AI has accomplished and the speed with which it continues to advance, we feel that it is much more likely that within the next 5 to 10 years, a very significant share of the population will no longer have economic value. They will have lost their jobs because AI and robots will be able to do anything a human can do, generally better, faster, and cheaper. And companies in a market's economy cannot afford to not be competitive. And so if your competitor is does not have the labor costs that you have, and therefore can provide products and services much cheaper, and potentially here with the support of AI and robots, much better than you can, then you're going to be out of business, and that doesn't serve anybody, including your employees. So the feeling is that we've got to come up with a contingency plan, some kind of a plan. The world needs a plan for how are we going to do a peaceful transition into a post-labor economy.
Mhm.
Because if we don't do anything, what we're going to see is more and more people will be eventually getting laid off, not be able to find meaningful work and becoming resentful. The benefits of the AI is going to increasingly go to the top 1% of the world population that owns the AI and the robots and automation. And they will increasingly become afraid of the resentful masses. And we have the potential for a tremendous conflict between a tiny elite that would have all of the force of AI, weaponized AI and robots against a pretty defenseless mass of the population. Yes, Lisa Nice.
I wanted to point out to you that during the Obama administration, there had been a fivefold increase in the building of underground bunkers.
Yes, and we know here gated communities is growing as well, and the ability to now have drones and other surveillance equipment isolating, if you would, the owner class, if we want to call them that, is increasing, and at some point here that those could become lethal protection. It's not that difficult to imagine. And as we separate the that owner class from the masses and reduce the interaction. But the consequences of the actions of each of those groups on the others remain. That's where we run the risk of having open class warfare. So the idea here is that we know that governments and parliamentarians and so forth are generally reactive. They're usually not very good at being proactive on things. And at given the rate of change of uh, developments happening with AI and technology, we may not have a lot of time. So we feel that we have to try to get the people in authority to use this opportunity to start the process of figuring out how we come up with a plan to have a peaceful transition into a post-labor economy because the consequences of not doing that are so severe. And this involves all kinds of tremendous um, disruptions because we're not talking only about disruptions of jobs for people who lose their jobs to AI or people that have to retrain or and upskill or whatever to work with AI. But we're talking about here the whole question of how do we fund the world population without jobs? That's going to impact people's ownership. It's going to impact all kinds um, of things that we take for granted today. What's the impact? Is that going to be on taxes? Are we going to end up with basically an owner class that now says, "Oh, we own the world," and that having to pay for everything? Or is it going to be some kind of a sovereign funds issue where we the means of production and the resources of the world become shared resources? Uh, what does that look like? And I don't think the goal here is for us to try to tell the that World Summit, hey, this is what you have to do. This is the solution. We basically just have to tell them you have to find a solution. You have to start talking about it. You have to start thinking about what you can do on that. So anyway, that the thought is that that's the topic that we were talking about last week that we want to continue on this week. And as I said, we're recording this. So Ingrid, hi, glad to see you with us today. Um,
Hello.
hi. So as I said in the invite, we're going to be continuing the discussion from last week on how do we try to influence the World Summit for Social Development to uh, refocus away from saying how do we create and protect jobs into how do we peacefully transition into a post-labor economy because it does not look like it's going to be possible to create and protect jobs. We might create them over the next 4 or 5 years or so, but they probably won't be long lasting because maybe within 10 years, the state of AI and robots will probably be so far along that all those jobs are going to go by the wayside. So, Kurt, glad to see you with us today as well.
It's good to be here, and it's odd that I get to be doing it so early.
Yeah, for you, yes. Um, so, at any rate, here the question is, how do we influence the uh, uh, the the World Summit? And first of all, will this World Summit, will people even react? Will the countries react? We were in the 1990s, there was a lot of euphoria around the idea of multilateralism. So that was the biggest assembly in the history of mankind of world leaders. We've never had so many world leaders come together for a particular topic or cause. And when I look here at the upcoming conference, I ask myself, are we going to see the same results? Now, among the documents that I put included in the invite and a couple of videos, uh, one thing I did not include that I should have included was the World Social Report 2025. That is a report by DESA at the United Nations uh, in preparation for the upcoming summit. It's I think, 130 something pages uh, long. So it talks a lot about the whys and the wherefores. But the main thing here is I'm just going to read the executive summary. I had Gemini do a summary of the entire 130 pages, and it's interesting what it came out in the executive summary. I'll just read this quickly. Uh, the executive summary, A World at a Crossroads. The World Social Report 2025, a new policy consensus to accelerate social progress, presents a sobering analysis of the current global landscape while charting a hopeful path forward. 30 years after the first World Summit for Social Development, the report argues that while humanity has made unprecedented gains in areas like poverty reduction, societies worldwide are strained by a dangerous, self-reinforcing, vicious cycle of economic insecurity, staggering inequality, and declining trust. I'm going to interrupt here just for a second on this. When it talks about the unprecedented gains in areas like poverty reduction, most of that can be attributed to five countries, China being the primary one that has seen a massive poverty reduction. Most of the rest of the world has actually lost ground. And so we have to be careful when we get those cumulative numbers that we don't say, oh, the whole world is sort of succeeding equally in combating poverty. Anyway, okay, continuing. This social malaise, the report contends, is not an inevitable outcome of global crisis, but is largely the result of decades of policy choices that prioritized free markets, deregulation, and fiscal austerity over investments in people and public institutions. The resulting social fractures now threaten to paralyze collective action and derail the Sustainable Development Goals. The report's central thesis is a call for urgent transformative change through a new policy consensus built on three core mutually reinforcing principles: equity, economic security for all, and solidarity. This requires more than just strong social policies. It demands a fundamental reorientation of all policymaking through a social lens, supported by institutions that foster social cohesion and a renewed commitment to multilateralism. Okay, so uh, when I read that here, and somewhere else I've read in there that basically they're calling for what in Japan they're calling Society 5.0. The idea of putting humanity at the core of everything. But this is a problem. In other words, all stakeholders. But you can't, in a market economy, you can't go and say, oh, our employees are of equal importance to the mission of our company. Because let's assume, and it's a question of ethics go into that too. And one can think, well, wait a minute, it's unethical for you to try to get rid of all your employees. But if your business was started to provide medical care, for example, or medications to very ill people, and but your costs due to the employees and the employees looking for higher wages are such that a large share of the population cannot have access to the medications, it's almost an ethical requirement that you seek ways to reduce the costs of providing your medications so that you can service everybody that needs it. And that if that conflicts with the idea of protecting the jobs for your employees, if your employees are not needed to produce or distribute those medications, is it morally acceptable that you say, no, no, we're going to share the profits among us? It's almost like we're a mutual company and you're all owners of this company, so we're going to share that. And the fact that, well, a lot of people, they're not going to be able to get the medications, that's secondary. We began this company to benefit us, not the customer. And so that it's not so easy as to say, oh, all stakeholders are equal in that mentality. Anyway, so that's one part. The other part here, I was talking to Lysinka. Many of you know her. She's the head of the Commons cluster section of the United Nations Major Group, NGO Major Group, uh, and we are talking about this because we're going to have a strategy meeting right after this meeting of the Commons Cluster. And as we had talked about, I said, okay, a meeting to invite the world's movers and shakers to come and criticize the idea of free markets and deregulation. Is that in today's uh, political climate going to be successful? In 1995, it was the biggest assembly of world leaders. I'm not getting the vibe coming out of the UN that their expectations are that we are going to see a repeat of a lot of world leaders at this upcoming conference. Um, and then one of the issues is, okay, if we say that we want to replace market economies with something else, what are we looking to replace it with, and how do we get there? Or what are some of the possibilities? I think what we're saying here is with regards to the summit, we're not telling them, hey guys, you have to switch to this solution. It's got to be a universal basic income. It's got to be whatever. What we're saying is you guys have to have a contingency plan. If this AI stuff and the robots do end up displacing almost all human workers, what's the model? How does the world continue? And you need to have a plan. So you better start discussing that and coming up with a plan. And it has to be a global plan. We can't have a plan that the global north is able to finance for its citizens a reasonable universal basic income. And the global south, well, sorry, that's your problem. And the fact that you don't have the means to do that, well, that's not our problem. So we need to have a global solution. And so they have to at least state that as a goal, that in their discussions that they have to come up with a global solution to how people are going to have income or the means of sharing in the productive output and the resources of the planet. Um, there has to be a plan for that because otherwise we run the risk of class conflict that we can barely even imagine. But it's totally conceivable with the means out there today that I think somewhere there's actually a YouTube out there describing a scenario where AI literally releases a virus on the world that eliminates 95+% of the world population within an extremely short time. And potentially, if the top 1% becomes so afraid of the bottom 95%, they might be the ones that work with the AI to do exactly that. So somebody needs to be talking about it. Okay. So I've been talking for a while now, and I want to stop and get some of your thoughts. Hi, Joan. Glad that you joined us. You probably don't know what I'm talking about yet, but it's basically a continuation of last week's discussion on how do we get the World Summit for Social Development uh, to um, to reorient so that they make the establishment of a plan for how we will get a peaceful transition into that post-labor economy that gets on the agenda. Okay, so any comments? Some of you have been here since I started talking, so perhaps you've got some thoughts on all this, but let's start the discussion going. So please.
So I was going to, or I wanted to play the Notebook LM uh, video that I generated yesterday, and that's what I played for our members of UnityNet during the call we had yesterday. So I'm just thinking it's still sitting on my desktop. I could play it again because it actually
Okay.
does align with what we're talking about here.
Okay, let me just go and get this so that you can share. Okay, I think you should be able to share. Give it a try.
Yep.
Let's see if you,
Yeah, it says sharing not turned on
it's not
in
turned
the
on or is,
request.
oh, okay. There we go.
Okay, let me just see if I can cue this up.
Okay. By the way, for those of
Okay.
you wondering here, is my internet connection going to crap out on me again? I'm back home, and so I've got better internet connectivity today, so we
Yeah,
should be
well,
okay.
we see you in your library.
Yeah.
Your typical spot.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just see if I can get this sharing going. Um, so it's not a long video. It's maybe 7 minutes, I think,
Yeah,
7.5.
the Notebook LM videos are 7 to 8 minutes typically.
Yeah. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, sorry. I have to stop. I forgot to share the sound. Always an issue. You have to remember to press that little tick box. Share sound. There we go. Try this again. So I consider this to kind of a step one um, on the road toward what we're trying to achieve here. So the idea, at least, of being able to train and achieve um, an ethical AI outcome for sovereign AI systems. So, in other words, not necessarily those corporate AI systems we're using today, but where communities could own their own data centers and AI systems. Who knows if any one of those corporations who are now putting the AI out there would adopt any of this, but there's at least a possibility, and we are hoping to work with, for instance, the folks that are investing into the AI sector in places like Alberta and Hawaii to work with us on this type of stuff. So this is basically, I'll play this now. Oops. Sorry, no sound coming up. I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. I had muted it last night. I'll turn the sound off.
Can you make the window a little bit bigger, Lloyd? Yeah, perfect. Thank
Maximize it.
you. Yep,
Okay.
that's better.
Today, we're digging into a really powerful new blueprint for global partnership. It's a vision for how we can all work together, not just to, put out fires, but to actually build a healthier, more peaceful world for everyone. Look, for decades, the global model has been all about aid, investment, and development. But with the challenges we're facing now, you gotta wonder, are we just putting band-aids on an old, broken system? Or could we build something totally new? Could our partnerships actually become tools for healing the planet? This right here, this quote from a recent Canada-Africa Business Summit, just nails it. It's this clear, powerful demand to move away from those old, extractive ways of doing things and shift to a partnership that's actually built on shared values and mutual respect. This isn't just some small adjustment, this is a call for a complete overhaul. So what does this new model even look like? Well, the whole vision is built around this idea called the Fifth Industrial Revolution. Think of it as a huge leap beyond the fourth, which was all about automation and data. This new era is about humans and technology actually working together for the good of the planet. And this definition is so important because it changes the goal completely. We're not just talking about making things faster or more efficient. The whole point of the Fifth Industrial Revolution is to use our best technology, like AI, to solve our biggest, deepest problems, healing our ecosystems, building real peace, and just making life better for all of us. I mean, the difference is night and day, right? The Fourth Industrial Revolution was all about optimizing the systems we already had, making them faster. The fifth is about building brand new systems from the ground up with a totally different purpose. The driver isn't just technology anymore, it's technology that serves people and the planet. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how do we actually build it? Well, the first pillar is what you could call the hardware, the real physical stuff, the infrastructure that gives communities a solid foundation to truly thrive. We're talking about building for what's called regenerative peace. And this completely changes what we think of as security. Foundational security isn't about fences and weapons, no. It's about making sure every single community has the basic building blocks for a good life. When people have plenty of healthy food, clean water, and green energy, you're not just surviving, you're creating the conditions for real, lasting peace. And hey, this isn't some far-off dream. The tech is here. Take the solar roof city pod concept. It's a kind of self-contained ecosystem that can generate 24,000 kilowatt hours of clean energy per person every year. To give you some perspective, that's nearly double what the average American uses. That is an absolute game changer. But the city pod is so much more than just an energy generator. It's the whole shebang. Its closed environment produces tons of food and clean water. It has a biodigester that turns all the waste back into more energy and nutrients. Nothing is wasted. That means it has a zero carbon footprint. And maybe best of all, you can scale it from a single family all the way up to a whole city. It's literally a life support system. So, if the city pod is our amazing new hardware, we're going to need an ethical operating system to run it, right? Something to make sure it's being used for the good of the community. And that brings us to the second pillar, making sure the AI that guides all this is totally aligned with our deepest human values. There's this incredible project called Wenelto that's tackling this exact problem, and it starts by asking a revolutionary question. We train AI on all this data we scrape from the internet, but what if we trained it on something deeper? What if we trained it on generations and generations of human wisdom? So here's the game plan. Instead of just grabbing data, the project gathers stories and wisdom from communities that are so often ignored. We're talking indigenous elders, grassroots activists, even hip-hop culture. Then they bake that wisdom right into the AI's core programming. It gets deployed in local hubs to solve real problems, and they are constantly checking to make sure it's actually serving the community's best interests. And these are the core values that drive the whole thing. This isn't just code. It's an AI being built from the ground up to understand what things like dignity, peace, and healing really mean. This is how you make sure technology works for us and not the other way around. All right, so we've got the hardware and we've got the ethical software. Now for the big question. How do we actually make this happen? Well, the action plan is all about creating a global network of living laboratories through what they call twinning partnerships. And a perfect example of this is happening right here in Canada. In Markham, the Spark Markham Centre of Excellence in Regenerative Development, or CORD for short, is being built as one of these living labs to test out all these ideas, from smart food systems to ethical AI. Now, this twinning idea is the secret sauce. It is absolutely not about one-way aid. The Markham Hub, for instance, brings the tech and market access. But its partner hubs in the Global South, like one being developed in Nigeria, they bring something just as valuable. Their local expertise, indigenous wisdom, and a place to see what really works on the ground. It's a genuine two-way street. And this is no small experiment. We're talking about a proposed 10-year budget of $117 million for the Spark Markham Hub alone. But what's really cool is that it's designed to eventually become self-sustaining, generating its own money from things like training programs and selling clean energy and food. From its home base here in Canada, on what many Indigenous peoples call Turtle Island, this network is going global. Twinning partnerships are popping up in Kenya, Cameroon, and the DRC. A huge part of this is creating youth peace gardens and forests, giving young people hands-on training. The vision is to build this incredible web of shared knowledge all across the Commonwealth and La Francophonie. So when you put it all together, the grand vision, the hardware, the ethical operating system, and the action plan, what you really get is a completely new story for how we can move forward together in the 21st century. And that's the bottom line. This whole thing is a move away from that old top-down model of aid and into a new era of co-creation. It's a partnership where our tech is guided by wisdom, our buildings actually help heal nature, and the whole point is to build a future that truly brings everyone forward. You know, the inventor Buckminster Fuller said it perfectly. You don't change things by fighting what already exists. If you really want to change something, you build a new model that's so much better, it just makes the old one obsolete. And that's exactly what this is all about. Which leaves us with one last really big question to think about. It's an idea so powerful, it's actually behind a petition that's gaining steam in Canada. What if we just shifted our priorities? What if we decided that building the foundations of peace, food, water, and energy for everyone, was just as important as our traditional defense spending? Just imagine what kind of world we could create then.
Where's the link to that? Lloyd?
Yeah,
So that was 7 minutes or so.
yeah. So you have not loaded that up
Yeah,
anywhere.
7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah. So you have not shared.
It's actually already on YouTube as well.
Oh, okay, good. So
Could you
maybe
share that
post
link?
the link.
Yeah, I'll put it up.
Okay.
Beautiful, Lloyd.
You know, it's very, very interesting. The one of the things that I came across here in the research I've been doing on this whole topic is the idea of scarcity. Okay, that the entire global economy right now is based on scarcity. And so if you're wanting to do a business, you look to see where is demand exceeding supply. And you try to figure out how you can provide something on the supply side to get a share of that demand. And this has sort of morphed into where some people actually take active measures to increase scarcity. Whether we're seeing farmers in France spilling the milk and stuff on the streets to demonstrate that we have to reduce the amount of product to keep the prices up, or in India where we see these huge grain complexes that are primarily there to destroy food, so that they can maintain the prices. And So the idea of inequality and so forth is actually considered to be a need for the marketplace to really function. If people were not deprived and not really needing things, they wouldn't there wouldn't be the demand. There would not be the willingness to pay what people are asking for those items. And we know a lot of companies they take advantage of that. They go and they deliberately withhold sometimes some of their supply to manipulate the prices. And so one of the challenges, I think, Lloyd, with what you're proposing is that the corporate all these corporate AI, the major foundation companies on the corporate AI side, primarily their vision of eventually that becoming profitable is assuming that a lot of corporations and companies and government agencies will pay a lot of money to be able to replace their human employees and eliminate that cost factor. Of course, there are a lot of people saying, but if nobody has jobs, who's going to buy your products? But we have seen for example, in South Africa during apartheid, that the people on the top end really didn't care whether the people on the bottom end were buying their product, as long as they were able to trade among themselves for high-end stuff. So part of my concern a little bit is, do we, does the world want peace? We just have a president here that took the most powerful country in the world and decided to rename the Department of Defense into the Department of War. And so I don't know here, is this sort of an example, a good example of hey, yeah, let's go out and why didn't he rename it to Department of Peace? I don't know, or we have wouldn't it be a good idea to have a Department of Peace? No, but we're going to have a Department of War. So we get
Well, he's not following that 1984. They had a Department of Peace. So I guess he didn't want to follow that.
yeah. So the
He's
the, the concern that I'm looking at here is because um, I do think with what's being done in the general AI, it is definitely conceivable that you could use the existing models that are being generated to pull out the same kind of wisdom and things you're talking about, Lloyd. I don't know if there's a need to have any kind of proprietary or customized AI on that, as long as the AI is trained to not be biased and to take all information into consideration. But the issue really is that we have to wake people up to the potential consequences if we don't get this right. If things just are allowed to continue and we end up with the top 1% owning everything, that and the bottom 99% being seen as a danger. That making people realize what those consequences could be, and so that we might still be able to have a dialogue of how to come to a more equitable world now. Once the sides get hardened and the elite is used to the idea that there's never going to be any more connection to the bottom 99%, and that the bottom 99% are useless to them because both as a market and as producers, uh, we can't wait till that happens, because once that happens, to get agreement on how to come back together, get everybody back together, is going to be very difficult. So, what more thoughts on this idea, or thoughts on what Lloyd was proposing, or whether we need to go and have a whole bunch of parallel solutions, or people are just going to be able to talk to the AI and say, "Give me the solution that's relative to my situation." Yes, Joan.
Yeah. So, hmm, there's so many parts of this, you know me, my mind goes. I'm always so first let me say thank you for playing that, Lloyd. Um, First of all, I don't run my life by fear. So I think that we have to be careful about saying AI is going to take over and the 1%. I mean, that's in the United States. They're living like that. Where, and I know they own the world and stuff like that, but some of that is going to change too. And it's possibly it's going to all of this is going to happen. I'm not quite sure we have a lot of choice. But what we do have choice on is working together. But I also am very careful when someone has a solution because you need to talk to people about what they have as a solution and come together in a collaborative way to come up with those solutions. But I think the time for having an overarching vision, there's nobody that's going to disagree with wanting peace and wanting abundant food and that everyone's equal and all of that. And at least publicly, not many people are going to say they disagree with that. So we're there already. The question is, what do we do to make it happen? Because it seems like you just mentioned the U.S. Department of War. President Trump got elected saying that he was a president of peace, and people accept that. You know, so why do we listen to politicians? Why do we listen to most of the people it probably is in Canada too. The US and Australia and Britain are paid off by lobby groups of foreign countries to make decisions for them. So why are Americans or Canadians or British people electing politicians when they're making decisions for foreign countries? So there's so many things that we can talk about, but I want to talk about the word change. I've been involved in community for a long time, and the one thing that I know that people react to is when they hear the word change. People want to change. This is my saying. People want to change unless everything remains the same. And so um, every politician that have said, "Oh, we want change," never get elected. When they talk about the taxes or they talk about something specific or an ethnic group or, it's everybody else or whatever, they get elected. I think what we need to do is look at some of the solutions that are working, highlight them, um, and just do things on the grassroots because I think that having governments to change, it's not going to happen. There's no buy-in for them. There are some rich people I think that who want to make a difference that see the inequity. How do we contact them? Like real practical things that can happen. We can speak all we want about peace, but you watch the world. Everything you see is chaos and hatred. So how do you get peace out of that? At this point in history, there are more educated people than have ever existed. And I was always taught that if you're educated, you're not going to be racist. And I go, okay, then is everybody dumb? So it's, racism is one thing. I don't like to talk about that. I like to talk about prejudice because a lot of that is based on the poor, which happen to be ethnics, but poor people as a whole, and that includes white people, they also suffer from inequity. So I tend to use the word prejudice instead of racism because I guess it's all encompassing, and we don't want to displace people who are poor. You have Western countries that think that there are no poor people in their country, only poor people is over there. So they have to do the work there. But it's in their communities that they need to work because that's where the differences are made. When you have, you want to, most people want to share, some people want to share, not everybody. They want to keep. And I'll just end by saying that I read a story, and I think it was Lysinka that actually told the story, but or at least it was on that platform, I think, too many platforms. And when COVID happened and there was a scarcity that was happening with food, Canadians ran out and bought toilet paper. Just ran to the grocery store and toilet paper was an obsession. And instead of buying one big thing and leaving for other people to buy, they bought as many as they could, each person. So so I was like, oh, okay. So other people are in that situation too. Why didn't you buy? Okay, two I can see, but people are buying five, 10. And then I read another story from Africa where, or at least I think I heard from Lysinka, where there was a scarcity of food, and without any organization or people telling them, the community brought what they had, and they all automatically met in a little uh, um, common ground or under a tree and brought their food to share, as little as they had. And I thought, wow, that to me is the difference of community. You share, you're all going to starve together, you're going to eat together, you're going to hold hands. And maybe it's where I was brought up, I don't know, but I just can't see grabbing everything. And maybe I don't think like that. I don't know, but I don't have an answer. I just think people are scared. They're selfish. It's a what's in it for me. The what's in it for me, I don't understand either, because what's in it for you is also to help your fellow man. So where's that language? Where's that message? But
Ubuntu.
yeah, and I actually know the guy that owned the software. He sold it, but but that's again an African philosophy. So this selfishness, this greed, this fearfulness, this victimization, those are the things that we have to address before we ever have peace.
Totally. And that's one of the things that we approach each person's view of peace also. How do we draw forth a true vision of peace? And when we do that, uh, then that can be worked on. But whoever looks at peace to be able to be worked on, it's not in people's cranium. They want peace, but they've never ever written it down. They've never written any vision down at all. The little things are the ones that work the most. And this village commons
Yeah,
was a prime way that you were sort of describing
yeah,
in here in the West, and we don't have that anymore. It's been destroyed. We're destroying the national force here in America because it's going to be given away to whom? The big corporations and so on. Well, who is the government? We are when we decide to be. We are the
yeah.
ones that change our neighborhoods and everything else. I put into the chat a number of challenges. There's two challenges I put in. One is sort of a personal challenge. We have a number of us, and I'm not including myself in it, even though I gave it a go, but to be able to get onto some platforms like Joe Rogan or the CEO, what's that guy, whatever it is in the Great Britain, the second biggest podcaster in the world, uh, to offer your services to expose the public that they have, because there was a interview just the day before on this Diary of a CEO. That's the name of it, and it got almost 2 million views in one day. 2 million views in one day on this particular podcast. When people hear about it from those who saw it, they're going to spread the word for people to see it. And he can be a big change maker for us getting this kind of an idea of the Peacemaker's Challenge, because it challenges our youth to think about peace, to create peace in their own lives, in their own schools, in their own way, with no restrictions. Not saying it has to be educationally, not saying it has to be for food, not saying it has to be for any one thing. What are the things that you can generate that is going to bring forth peace?
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing of how proud I am of Canadians as a whole. I mean, it's not 100%, but when it was announced that we are going to become the 51st state, how it brought us together to say what a great country we had, and that our multi cultural strategy, or I'm going to call it strategy because they don't have a choice. They need immigrants. But most immigrants come in and want to be Canadian, even though we say you can retain your cultural heritage, which I agree with, because why should you throw away your family's history? I have no idea, and I never will till I die. I don't care if it's law or not. And I was really, because I'm out in the community all the time, talking to different people across Canada and stuff. And I was like, wow, instead of being angry, they're like, no way it's going to happen. And we have more guns per capita than the US does, but we have less crime, which tells you something. But I think that we don't have the fear and greed, and we care. We're more socially aware, or socially wanting to help. And it really showed when we were under threat, because when something happens to you, that's when your real personality comes out, I think. And I have to say, I mean, I wasn't born here, my husband's Canadian, but I couldn't be more proud of being Canadian. I'll tell you. I mean, I talk about being South Asian all the time, but I'm just saying that that's that's why I was talking about the fear, because when you're in fear, you make bad decisions. When you're greedy, you make bad decisions. When you don't care about other people, you make bad decisions, and they don't have to be made. You can feel wonderful by sharing. You can feel wonderful by giving a helping hand. It's a personal feeling, but it has a huge reach otherwise. But anyway, that's my
Don't
yeah.
I'd like to a couple of things that you said. I'd just like to comment on. One of the things that on this the call for the World Summit on Social Development that came out in that was um, a study that showed that 70% now of the world population basically thinks other humans are untrustworthy. They don't trust their neighbors or humans
Where was that
in
survey
general.
done? Where was that survey done?
The survey, that'd be interesting to check. I think here it was,
Yeah, I would check that.
yeah, I think it was a pretty broad survey, not done in a local area, but I'll look into that. But the thing about it is it was being reported by the United Nations, so I don't it was not like it's
Yeah.
just a UN thing or a US thing or whatever.
Well, that's a bad thing for us to be living, not trusting each other.
Yes, exactly. And it's new. This is something that has grown in the last several decades that has greatly exploded. The other thing here that I've spent a fair amount of time on because I've been looking at Rotary and the problem we've got of membership. And one of the things that came out when Rotary was founded, they had this classification concept. You can only have one person per profession in a club. And it's interesting to see that, for example, in Germany, I found out that they really still observe that in most clubs. They don't allow, I think it was two though. They allow up to two people per profession in a club, and those two slots are filled in your for your profession, you have to go find another club to join. And so as a result, it's still the movers and shakers of the community typically. But they described how in the US, and there's a famous book when I first joined Rotary, I was recommended I read this book called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam from Harvard, in which he describes how, starting in the mid 1960s, that community started to become less important in to the movers and shakers in the world. And we can see how this has continued. If you look, what's happened to your community newspapers? What's happened to local radio stations? By and large, they've disappeared, or the local newspapers have become basically just a coupon clipping place. And so, starting in the mid '60s, be the combination of the car, the combination of TV and the media resulted in us thinking more regional, national, global, because we were made aware of what's happening around the world and risks and issues that take place around the world. Became more mobile so that when the family size increased or decreased and we needed to get another house, we were not so concerned that we get a house in the same community where we lived. Maybe in a rural area, you don't have a choice. But in the suburban area, whether I stay in the community I'm in or I'm 10 miles away, but I'm in a different community. And as a result, I still go to my church that I went to before. I still go to the stores where I went to before. My job is wherever. So I started then looking and tracking what percentage of people, sorry, here, let me what percentage of people that adults live in the community where they grew up, where they went to school. The Rotary Club that I was a member of before I went over to the eClub, it was very interesting to note that the majority of the members of that club all went to the same high school at different years, maybe, but they all went to the same high school. But when the time came for them to talk about their kids, they were all talking about their kids living in halfway around the country in different places. Almost no one in that club had kids that lived still in their community. So we see this generational thing, and part of that started because of universities. Up until the mid 60s, and I'm a product of that. I graduated in 65 and from high school. And there, I was in sort of the elite high school from the community the city I lived in. This was the school of the outer suburb ring as opposed to the inner city ring. But yet hardly anybody went to college at that point in 65. But that's where it started to take off, where the idea of, oh, you're going to go to college became the norm in high schools like the one I went to. And as a result, people, when they started to go to universities, they didn't go to university in their town. Unless you lived in a big city where the universities were local, you left your community to go to the university. And once you were in the university, it was more about your profession, more about your major, more about the field that you were going to work in, rather than where you were going to live. You were going to go to wherever the job was. And the recruiting became on campus towards the end of your time in school, that you started looking for jobs and you cast your net further. So that was a big part of the break between the community you grew up in and where you were going to be. And then if you moved to a community and you were in a corporation, it was fairly common that it was expected you were probably going to be relocated a couple of times during your career. And that was normal. And this became a phenomena that was described by a British journalist as anywhere people. People who define themselves based on their profession and based on their abilities rather than where they went to school. And so you see, if you go to a lot of the parties or get to know people type of thing, that you see people, they don't start off with, oh, I'm from this town or that town. They start off with what their profession is or maybe what a general interest is. So those became known as the anywhere people. And people who typically only went as far as high school and never left to go to college or whatnot, stayed and got a job in the local town, those people were much more likely to stay. And so we see here in a study we did in New Jersey between two similar counties, one on the very northwest of the state, which is relatively rural, and one across the river from New York City, which is obviously urban. They're about the same size geographically, The one that's near New York has 6 times the population, but the percentage of Rotarians, people who are Rotarians, or the number of Rotarians, is slightly higher in the community, the rural community that has no very few, a very much smaller population, 1/6 the population, and they've got slightly more Rotarians. But the main difference between those two groups was almost all the adults in that rural county are in the town they grew up in. And so they're vested and they identified with the people, they identify with the community, and the people in the more urban county, that's just a place they go to sleep. They don't
But
work there.
also the system hijacked the word community. You can form a community to be whatever it wants to be. It
Yes.
used to be, right? And so it's just like sustainability. It means financial now, when they
Yeah.
use it. It's not about the whole concept, right?
You're
So
very, very true. As the internet and things came along, community, if you ask a lot of those anywhere people about community, you say, oh, well, I'm very involved with my community. But they define community as people who share their profession or share their interests, not necessarily people who share their
the
geography.
geographical,
Right.
right?
And so this became very observable during the Brexit election in the UK, where this journalist mentioned that the majority of the counties in the UK voted for Brexit. But this journalist living in London said in his whole life he had never set foot in any of those counties. And so you're anywhere people and the somewhere people split. Now, for Rotary, what this meant was the kind of people who were anywhere people, the people who were the movers and shakers, the people who were strategic problem solvers. Up until the mid 60s, and even going on a little bit beyond that because it took some time for it to transition. But up until the mid 60s, most Rotarians were strategic problem solvers. They were the movers and shakers in the community. They were the first ones that started to become anywhere people. So as they joined corporations or they moved and changed their community, their focus became broader and larger. So I can recall that in our Rotary Club, the first Rotary Club I joined, they had a campaign where they wanted to get some extra canned goods for the local food bank. And so they got all of us volunteered to spend a certain number of hours standing out in front of supermarkets asking the people to go in, would you buy a couple of extra cans of this or a couple of extra cans of that? And the thought came here, how likely would it be that we could get the CEO of Citibank or Chase Manhattan to go stand in front of a supermarket to find a way to get $50 worth of canned goods in an hour where they're sitting there and making decisions that involve tens of millions of dollars every day? And it's very unlikely. So this split started to happen. So as more and more of the Rotarians started to become globally focused or corporate focused, they became less dependent on their community. Their community had less influence in their lives. And so they're started to shift their focus to the bigger issues or more broader issues. And they started to leave Rotary. And Rotary decided, oh, okay, well, let's open the net. So let's not be so restrictive on these classifications, and let's open it to more people. As they did that, they got the people that came in were the kind-hearted volunteers that wanted to do something to help the disadvantaged in their community or wanted to just, be helpful to those in need in their communities. Well, as that focus took place, the remaining movers and shakers said this is no longer the strategically oriented where we made the policies for the community. Up until that time, until the mid 60s, Rotarians were the main political policy setters in many communities. They were all the top decision makers. They were the people who funded the political candidates. They were the it group. And to be a member of that table, to be on that table meant you were among the top people in your field in that community. And so you had all the prestige and everything that went with that, and the cloud and the access. And so as Rotary started to become more like Lions or others in social volunteerism, it chased out the remaining movers and shakers. So today, we're not the Rotary that was invited to help formulate the UN. We don't have those people. So this is something that AI in all the back and forth, and it was coming up and saying the dilemma for Rotary. Rotary missed the boat in the 1960s to transition into a world problem solving type of body. So the movers and shakers, they migrated over to the World Economic Forum, into corporate social responsibility, CSR type of functions and things like this. But they no longer had the interest in community. And because most of them are commuting, they don't have time to get involved anyway in knowing what's going on in their local community. That's just the place where they happen to be sleeping.
That's
And
interesting because I always thought that Rotary, not knowing, when I was younger, I thought Rotary was just businessmen getting together to mostly network and do some good in their community. I call it the feel good club.
yeah.
That's interesting to have that history.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what Rotary does now. I mean, I'm part of Rotary, the eClub,
Mhm.
and it's so convoluted and layered in bureaucracy. I don't know how they get anything done.
Well, Rotary is has because it made the supreme decision in the 1960s to remain a community club. It's sort of a network of clubs rather than a true association. Polio was the big exception. That it's the only thing, and maybe prior to the 50s, getting involved in the UN, UNESCO would not exist. UNESCO began in a Rotary meeting in London,
Mhm.
and that's what led to the creation of UNESCO. So Rotary, if Rotary today was what it used to be, the World Economic Forum would be a Rotary event. That hands down, that would have been the case. But right now, Rotary doesn't have those members. I think it said, I saw a statistic somewhere that Rotary went from having 70% of the movers and shakers in a community we typically were in Rotary, down to 15%. And so the question is, how do we get the movers and shakers back? They are really not interested in going out and cleaning up the park for the spring.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not worthy of their time. But we saw in one community here, they had a discussion about urban renewal of the downtown, and that attracted a lot of the kinds of people that used to be in Rotary, even though it was no longer strictly a Rotary meeting, but Rotary was the one that called that meeting. And so the issue is we've got to get back to where they think these are the kinds of projects where they can make what to them is a meaningful difference. Reducing the number of homeless people, are not so much reducing it, but when I went to Appel's conference in March, we had about 300 Rotary presidents, club presidents, and so forth present, and they talked about what they were doing in the clubs. A lot of clubs talked about, they were, because we've just gotten over the winter, they had collected clothing for the homeless. They were doing tutoring for students in school, and they were donating food to the food bank or money to the food bank. And so I asked, I said, oh, okay, great, homelessness. Okay, by how much have you reduced homelessness in your community? And people go, huh? Well, no, we don't do that. Well, we can give them some clothing, but we can't get involved in solving the problems. That's the problem. That's the responsibility of the government. That's not our responsibility. And the same thing goes when I asked about, okay, that you're doing the tutoring. Oh, that's great. By how much have you reduced the percentage of students in your community who are below grade level? Again, no, 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 no. We just will help a few students here. It's not our responsibility to address the percentage of students at grade level or not. And I think that's the difference. The Rotarians prior to 65, but it didn't become noticeable, I understand, until after about 85, but the started in 65. But the ones prior to 65, they would have gone and had the discussion here. How are we going to reduce homelessness? How are we going to reduce the percentage of kids below grade level? That was the thinking, the mindset of the people who were in Rotary. I've been asking for the last five international or world conferences that we've had, conventions. I've been asking people, what percentage of your weekly meeting is devoted to strategic discussion of problems facing your community? And they go, huh? Huh? No, 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 no. We leave our strategic hats at the door. We don't bring those into our meetings. And so I think here, when we start talking about the difference we can make in the world, it starts with the goals. If you don't have the goal to make a difference, so what they've really come down to is they say, I make a difference in the life of an individual.
Yeah.
I made a difference in that person's life. That's
So, so if we were to go back to Lloyd, you have a solution. How did you identify the problem? And who was involved in coming up with a solution?
It was our community, so of all the members of Unity now. And what we're trying to do is to localize the achievement, the actual achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, but looking beyond those, of course, to the next set of goals, the regenerative development goals, as we call them, even though the name hasn't been defined yet. But we're looking at post 2030, saying what are the potential goals post 2030. The Friends of the African Union had come to us and said, we're looking at the mending goals as a possible framework for post 2030 goals. And we're saying, okay, how can we achieve those goals, all of them, the SDGs today, but by delivering local solutions? How can we mobilize the local communities to implement local solutions to achieving those global goals? And that was our big question. That's always been our idea, and that's what we worked with Andrew Williams Jr. on for years, right? We had this Indigenous Global Unity Summit series of events and conversations with all those people that would come on our calls and talk about how can we deliver the local solutions to achieving all the global goals. That's been what our conversations have been around about since like 2019. How do we localize those goals? And so that is basically what we're at this point trying to identify: the physical hardware solutions, like those story pods, those different types of actual physical infrastructure, plus the business models, plus the financial models, like all of it. Right? We're trying to build a whole new model. And this is what I'm hoping we can present. And this is like the paper I delivered to Lysinka, right? To where we can have a structure that allows us to deliver, for instance, the SIFA plan. So now I am working with the AIs, right? I'm working with Notebook LM. I'm working with ChatGPT. I'm feeding all this information of our conversations with our members of Unity now. And here on this call, right? I feed this information from calls like this into those systems and say, how can we figure out together how we move forward to achieving that overarching vision of local implementation of the global goals?
Lloyd, there's one thing here I think is could be very interesting. It came out in some of the research that I was doing. In a lot of communities in developed countries now, the percentage of population that gets involved in anything local, even local elections, is falling to as little as 10%. Only 10% of the people will even vote in local elections, whereas the national and state elections in the same communities will get anywhere between 40 and 60% of the people voting. So there's just this lack of interest, lack of even awareness. I've noticed here that I've had some discussions with some local people. They had no idea of who the mayor of our community. We're in a 30,000 population community, and you've got a significant share of the people have no idea who the mayor is, who know what country or what party they represent or anything. And the other thing is the what I mentioned about this decline of community, decline of as corporations became bigger and bigger and more regional or national or global, then that reduced the importance of community to the people that were involved in those corporations and which became the major employers. That is coming much later. There's a several generation gap, let's say in India and South Asia and Africa, where they have not yet had this boom, if you would, in national and global thinking. So the people are still more locally focused in those areas. But so we see that a major difference is the more developed a country becomes, the less local it becomes.
So it
And
sounds like development is maybe not a good word to use for that then.
no, I mean, yeah, because we have to say, what the heck is development? Are you becoming more humanistic or are you just becoming more uh,
Mechanistic.
money oriented? But economies of scale, we know, is the number one driver of economic progress, if we want to call it that. But so I think here we see this gap, if you would, that Rotary is growing in South Asia, but it's because South Asia is still has the movers and shakers still and tend to be community oriented more so than in, let's say, the United States and Europe.
See,
And
one of the things, Bill, that if we're going to talk about peace and having a better society, is that we've got to stop using economics as a benchmark for community.
absolutely, that's what we're saying when we talk about
Like
moving.
honest to God, well, I live a pretty good life, but I share everything. But um, this I've never gone out and worked for a corporation either, so I don't really like to talk about them because I don't have first-hand experience. I tend to talk about things I have first-hand experience in doing. But eh, I come from a family. My grandfather was a Maharaj, and which they're given everything. And but one of the things that I learned from my family was you have the responsibility to give back. That is your responsibility. That you have to do that. Even if you make 2 cents, you give a penny away. It's so ingrained in me that I can't even get out of it, even if I want to. So it's you don't have to grab all the money you want because it doesn't make you who you are. But that's what I think most people think is that if they have a lot of money, it makes them. So that's the one model I think that would lead to peace because I think having that model leads to so many negative things, the bad things. I mean, there are people who do good things. I don't want to just say that, everybody with money is bad because it's not true. Um, but so the one thing is the money, economic. We need to have a more
Mhm.
sustainable model that defines what a country is and what makes them prosperous, what makes them happy, what makes them like, look at the Northern European countries, and we're a lot like, say, Sweden. We're more like Sweden and
Yes.
Norway and Finland, and Canada is more like that. We were getting a little bit too Americanized, but Trump stopped that, which is good. Had he not done that, I think in the next 5 years it would have been gone. But I think it made us go back and think, oh, we are more Europeans than we are
Mhm.
Americanized. So, and we're tend to be happier. Now, there is a segment that is very racist and very xenophobic but you know what? All groups are. It's honestly, if you really want to know the truth, every group has that. It happens in India, it happens in Jamaica. I grew up in these countries. I know they are. They pretend they're not to be because it's always the other side, but they just are just as much. And so we have to stop that.
Mhm.
Like it's why are you better than everybody else?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Indians
I
are one of
think
the most elitist group you could ever
yeah, yeah.
imagine.
I think here that
So
the thing that we're
but
calling
but
for,
one thing is they do have a balance with some of the other
yeah,
philosophies. So
yeah.
I just want to say
Uh-huh.
that. But
Yeah. One of the things, if we're calling for the decoupling of income from work, from labor, because one of the things that I found with the research I was doing with AI, the whole concept of labor is a major source of inequality in the world because some jobs are more valuable than other jobs, and there's a scarcity of the most valuable jobs, the jobs that compensate the most. There's a competition to get those jobs. And that's why 80% of the people going to universities are going to the universities to enhance their careers. And to enhance their income potential. So we have this whole drive. If we get away from the idea of the job, that there aren't any jobs, number one, that's going to remove this whole idea of I have to go wherever my job calls me to go. And people are more likely to become focused on community, more likely to go back to that focus on community because the profession is not pulling them away anymore. The Another thing along that same line was what was I going to say on that? Um, that the we are getting away if we go here to the idea of universal basic income, if that is not the thing for the poor people, but that's the thing for everybody, and almost everybody is dependent on that because nobody's got jobs. Now we're that removes the status aspect of, oh, I'm in this job, or I have this much money, or I have this kind of an income. That goes away. And so we may see a rebirth of the whole idea of, hey, we're all equals and we're all collaborative. Because right now, in most of the West, this mindset of be ahead of the Jones, whatever
yeah.
your neighbor, you've got to be better than your neighbor. That otherwise you're a failure. That thinking may go away, but it's going to be a tough challenge. And if nobody starts the process of thinking about how do we go from this dog eat dog world we're in now, think of the competition inside a corporation for the next promotion.
Yeah, but the thing is that if we get away from this whole idea, what difference does it make what kind of car or bigger house your neighbor has? That's what they want. Is it
Right.
what you want?
No, but that's nice to say. That's the kind of thing you might hear from a minister in a church, right? That you should think that way. But the psychology is we know from practice that people are very driven. The whole advertising industry is built around the knowledge that everybody wants to be have a higher status than their neighbors. They want to feel they're better than the people around them, and they'll put themselves in debt. So you got people with huge incomes. You find they've got no savings, no money, because they're trying to give the illusion that they are better than everybody around them. And as I was mentioning, in the corporations, the competition for promotions are such that people spend a lot of time figuring out how am I going to get that promotion as opposed to the guy sitting next to me. Right? I gotta outdo the people around me so that I'll get the promotion or I'll get the pay raise. And that's the driving mentality that we've developed in a lot of the world that
I tell
may
you one
go
thing,
away.
if you have money, money can be taken away from you.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah, yeah.
That's why people don't realize they spend their whole life making money. People my age are going through, I don't know if it's in the States or whatever, they're selling their houses and nobody want the things that they thought were valuable.
Yeah.
Okay? They spend their whole life working for a corporation. Now they're sick and they have rheumatoid and cancer and whatever. They can't enjoy their lives and they gave their whole life away to someone else.
Why do people who are poor vote to approve tax benefits for millionaires? One of the
I have no
studies,
idea.
one of the studies came out that, especially in America, most people believe that they might win the lottery or whatnot, and they'll be a millionaire, and they don't want to lose that. They're thinking here that they are one step away from being in the upper class, and therefore they will vote to support the upper class, and they see the lower class as people that are nibbling away at their heels and trying to take their jobs and their positions, so that the middle class sees their biggest enemy being the lower middle class and not the upper class.
It
That
still
that
comes down to money.
it comes
What I'm,
down to
I
money.
guess what I what I'm trying to say, everything is about money. I'm not saying that, earning money is bad. It's what you do with it. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. You do need some, I guess. But the other thing I was going to say about the getting peace and rebuilding community, this whole idea of decoupling that you're worth something because or value because you have money. But the other thing is that people are disconnected even from their neighbors, and they don't do reach out. They don't take the initiative to reach out. I remember smiling at someone one time, and she just sort of looked away and ran into the house. And I said to a friend of mine, "Wow." I smiled at my neighbor. This is like 25 years ago. My new neighbor that moved into our neighborhood, and I smiled at her and waved to her. And she ran into the house. She goes, "Oh, it's fear." I said, "Fear for a smile?"
Yeah.
And that really, I thought, and then there was a business course that says, oh, good communications, smile, it's an international language. And it's like, really? You have to tell somebody to smile?
You
And then
know,
it clicked. People don't smile because it's friendly. Like, why?
I yeah. I've lived here for 38
I
years.
think too much, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I lived here for 38 years. I have met at least once in all that time, maybe twice, some of them, my neighbors, with maybe two exceptions. And but to know your neighbors, when I was working, I typically left home at 6 o'clock in the morning and I got home at 10 o'clock at night. I worked 7 days a week. And so there's not a lot of time to get to know your neighbors. And because my neighbors are doing the same thing, it was very rare that we saw them pulling out of their driveway the same time I was pulling out of my driveway. So this gets back to the anywhere people. I've never had a job that was within 1 hour of where I lived. Never. Well, I'll take that back. When I was in the army, I did. But the other than that, I've never worked within an hour of where I lived. And
Well,
Well,
I
it's
in the last
interesting.
5 years, so many ethnic groups have moved into our street. I call it our street because our street is pretty, is what, maybe 20 houses. And the abundance of community spirit and sharing, it is like I feel like I was like that's how I was brought up. I people come knocking at the door. The next door neighbor, they're Muslim, and I said to her last week because it's who I am. I said to her, I'm bringing you some berries because of a berry tree. I said I'm not going to cook any food for you because I'm not quite sure about your dietary restrictions. And she said to me, "Oh, that's so sweet of you to think of that." So, and I said, "Well, until you teach me, you're going to get fresh fruits
Mhm.
when we have it. That's it." And she goes, "Okay, I think I'm good with that." Across the street from them is a Hindu, Muslim and Hindu right across the street. And, they all come to my house. They buy things. "Oh, Joan, I was in the store and I saw this. I thought of you." Like, what? So you can build community.
Mhm.
You can, but it takes
It takes time and it takes presence.
and caring too, because like my husband, he couldn't give a shit
Well,
to
it's
begin
all
with.
participation.
When I was
It's
working
all in
for
participation of it.
yeah, when I was
Yeah.
working for one of the largest banks in the world, I had a woman who was a project manager. She was from India, working for me. And about 20 years ago, there was this huge religious conflicts going on in India, where this would have been at least 25 years ago, no, 30 years ago now, 30 years ago. There were entire communities of both Hindus and Muslims that were wiped out by the other religion. And this woman applied for vacation. And she said she hoped she could get back there to be able to kill some Muslims before the conflicts ended. That she was going on vacation to kill some people. That was that, and she dared to say that to
Yeah.
her colleagues that
Yeah.
she was.
Centuries of hatred between Hindus and Muslims.
And but so I think here we have to be very careful not to put too great an assumption that everybody in the world wants peace and is willing to make sacrifice for peace and so forth, unless we can give them a reason to do so.
Yeah.
See, this is where we look and say in our club that we see ourselves as an influencer, that if we can influence people to seek to build a better world, to seek to do the right things, to believe in that golden rule, and do it. It's interesting. The mafia in Italy are considered to be some of the most religious people in the world, but
Yeah.
somehow they don't think here harming and killing their neighbors is in conflict as long as they repent afterwards. Ingrid, yes, please.
So I want to thank Joanne because what you just described about community is what my neighborhood had. So I'm from Germany. I moved here to the US 40 years ago. But when my kids were little, so 30 years ago, we had the best community here. We had progressive dinners. We closed the cove for kids to play. We cooked out. And I've been thinking about that so many times. I said, we need to start to do this again because I don't know many. When I talk to everybody, so I kind of know them, but not the others. I feel like they're all in their houses. They're just like living their own life. And you motivated me now to go back and have a cookout as soon as it gets a little colder here because we need the community. We need to help each other and be there for each other. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I just think we should all do it. I have no problem. Doesn't matter what color somebody is, what religion, I don't care. They're people. And I just reach out. That's it.
Yes.
Male, female, black, white, whatever. I don't
So,
care.
so the other thing here Lloyd mentioned was the idea of getting back to community. One of the other things we looked at when we were looking at I was the vice chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the UN, and I was doing a lot of studies to say, okay, why are we failing to have the impact that we call for the SDGs and we say we got to achieve this, but when we look at the World Bank statistics, we see that in most parts of the world, in most goals, we're going downhill. we're actually losing ground on a lot of the SDG targets. We are behind where we were in 2015. So why? And we found that the major reasons, A, was nobody has as their goal to achieve the SDGs. That they we couldn't find any projects where somebody said, "Hey, our mission and our group is to achieve the educational goals or the poverty goals or whatnot of the SDGs on a world basis." But what we did find, we found most of the goals of projects from all NGOs were focused on helping the victims of the problems, the symptoms, dealing with the symptoms rather than dealing with the causes and dealing with the problems themselves. So that was the first problem. But the second problem we found was that almost all the projects that were being undertaken were local or regional. Now, some of that is because they're focused on the symptoms, and symptoms usually are, if you think of a storm, of a earthquake or whatever, those tend to be local. Or if you're in an area that has no industry or no transportation facilities and so forth. But the other thing was that when we did find projects that were aimed at education or aimed at specific parts of the SDGs, that we see, okay, maybe 3% of the communities around the world are doing something, but we get the impression that there's a lot being done, especially within Rotary. We hear projects here. We do about 1 million projects a decade in Rotary. Okay, so we hear about all these projects, all this good being done, but it's so fragmented and so here a piece, there a piece, there a piece that
But good for whom?
no, it's good for the people that are being served. That
Uh,
there is
some
progress.
of
In
it.
some cases, yeah. In some
Yes.
cases, it reaches to the people who really need it.
No, you're right.
Uh,
But
I
good.
put into the chat a little earlier about reading this historic view of humanity. We are on the edge. It's by Ulf Sandström, who I think is very much like Bill, a bloody genius, and has very good insights and so on. Uh, Ulf also has a thing on killing and a number of other very profound queries and propositions that he puts forth. Uh, I back it up with a thing that happened on Humanity Rising last week, not this week. Uh, and it was a program that they did that showed how in the 1800s it all began. Americans, the wealthiest Americans, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all of that, got together and they formed a particular group and they started to be able to formulate how to be able to basically take over the government. And when you look at it, it's with two people. It's Jim Garrison talking, and it's a guy named he's got the disclosure. Roche. It'll come to me. But he actually was on the Pentagon Papers staff. He was a lawyer on the Pentagon Papers, and he's got frizzy white hair and so on. But anyway, they did a program, and when you watch that program, you will find they initially 15 minutes is Jim Garrison talking about Palestine and the problems with Palestine, but that all ties in with what happens with Danny Sheehan is his name. I don't know if you know who Danny Sheehan is. Sheehan. Look at that program, and I'd love to hear your response to it because it's, in a way, scary how powerful these people have gotten to be able to cause the wars. Basically, almost all the wars since then have been caused by these elite.
Think of the American
I'm gonna come-
Revolution. Would the
Well,
American Revolution have taken place without Sam Adams?
Not even close. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's you're 100% right. But let's get back to the issue that we're looking about. How do we make it better? How do we change these?
Well, see, there's where it is. It's getting to the people in the commoners, getting the commons back, getting people like we have this neighborhood council.
Mhm.
I'm very active in the neighborhood council from not only saving the big oaks and all that stuff to whatever is needed, the water, how they're we're not getting them to allow the poisoning of the plants anymore in our neighborhood. Why? Because it kills all the insects, it kills this, it kills, and so on and so forth. We know that. Why is it that our frickin' government isn't buying into it? Well, we already know that. Well, who's sponsoring what?
Yeah.
And so on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting here because you mentioned here about the grass and whatnot and all the fertilizers. The last time I was in Germany, it's interesting to note how many people are letting their lawns grow wild over there because they
Yeah.
have a much higher awareness of the impact on our environment. Uh, I saw that with my grandchildren over here. They hate the idea that I'm involved with AI because they said, "You realize how much power you're using?" How, and, but it's anyway. So the one thing here that's very interesting because you brought up Kurt about recent some of these changes and things that were fairly recent. One of the things that surprised me is in the 18th, only in the 18th century did something take place that has had a major impact. And that's what they call enclosures. That's when the enclosures began. Up until the 18th century, a lot of the land in communities were what they called the commons. We still have, like the Boston Commons, we still have parks in some major cities that are called the Commons. But on a world scale, in England and Europe, it was in the 18th century that they began this thing that they call the enclosure era, when all of a sudden land became privatized. Everything was going into privatization. And we have to realize that when we think here, private property is something here. Oh boy, don't even, that's a third rail. If any politician talked about doing anything about private property, but the concept of private property for the masses is something that is relatively new, and it's important to realize that because um, we can't. One of the things we can't afford is if we decide, okay, we're going to have a universal basic income, whatever, and everybody's going to have all their basic needs met and but we're going to do that by only having some taxation. So you got the top 1%, 2% of the people, they're looking to see how can we keep taxes as low as possible? How can we keep the benefits to the masses as low as possible? Because we're the ones having to pay for it. So you have that built-in conflict that'll be taking place there. And so can we can't afford if we just say we're going to freeze everything. If you're a billionaire now, we're going to freeze that. Okay, you're still going to be able to stay a billionaire. You'll just pay a little bit. So your kids are going to get all the benefits of being a kid of a billionaire. And but anybody that's down below, they have no way of having an income, so they have no way to move up. It's we've now permanently created this two-class society, and there's no way to cross between one and the other. Isn't that what we had with feudalism, more or less? That if you were the child of the count or the duke or whatever, that's your station in life. You became an officer, and if you were not of that class, you became a soldier, an enlisted soldier. So, are we going to get back to that if we just freeze it with some tax level? This is what's got to happen in these discussions to take place. Do we allow the top 1%? The latest numbers say the top 1% now own 95% of the world's resources and wealth. Do we
Musk is
freeze
going to
that?
be the first trillionaire
Yeah, I
within a
know.
few
I
months.
saw that.
Who
Yeah,
is?
Elon
Musk.
Musk. He's there. They're offering him $1 trillion package or a 999 billion dollar package if he achieves certain goals of wiping out certain numbers of jobs by a certain time. more or less,
Well,
because
the Rothschilds are trillionaires.
oh no, but this is a whole family. There's several
Yeah.
families like that.
And
But
it's
here's
over
an interesting,
200 years as well.
right. The interesting thing is Elon Musk has a brother and a sister who are also both billionaires. And so but anyway, the issue
And
is,
his mother is a model.
yeah, she was. Oh, she actually still is.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, if we have to think, if we go and say we're moving into a post-labor economy where you have a universal basic income, everybody has that, we're basically freezing everybody's wealth where it is. And so do we want to do that? Do we want to create that $100 million plus class that is never going to have less? Well, if they have a lot of kids, they might have to dilute it, but otherwise, they're at that level. And if you're down at this level, you're at this level, and you have no means. There's no such thing as upward mobility anymore, right? That is based on income because we've now permanentized this division based on income. That has to be part of the discussion to say, how do we create more equality in the world? It might be that we have a wealth tax that says, okay, over 100 years, over the next 100 years, we are going to slowly go and tax that upper class to a level that they will eventually will all be equal. But
So
until
that's a model that's in India.
uh,
Like you have the rich people they're born into wealth, and the poor people they accept that God has made them poor,
yeah,
and it's everybody understands each other. That's why there's so much migration from India is because it's so hard to move. But I mean, it's getting like that in the Western world too. But the Western world is supposed to be you know, enlightened, but God knows what that
yeah,
means.
but you have to
Uh,
remember the up until a few
there's a
generations ago.
facade. No, but there's a facade that you can move up and stuff. But
Yeah,
and with hard work, you can do that. To be honest,
yeah, but you
it's
have to
just all.
realize in the West, up until a few years ago, what was the thing on Kurt? You might know, or Lloyd. What was the God, the kings, God determined
Oh,
your
the divine rights of God, kings.
divine rights. Yeah. So the whole divine rights, and actually here in doing some genealogy, I found that it wasn't that many generations back. I have like a great, 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 great grandfather who was a slave. He was a slave in Denmark. He was Danish born, but everybody who was born to a farm, you belonged to the farm. If your farm got sold, you were sold with the farm. And so the thing was that his mother managed to get the owner to give him a vrijbrief, a letter declaring his freedom, that he became free. But that's not that many generations back, and I found out that it was in until 1909 or 1910 when Denmark abolished slavery among Danes.
Yeah.
That's not that
Well,
long
see,
ago.
yeah, and in India, if it still exists, if you had a debt to someone and you die, your children have to still
Yeah.
pay that
By the
debt.
way, we have that in the United States too, though. Oh, wait, I'll take that back. I don't know about it. It's in Germany, and because we had to go through a situation with my in-laws, and we found out that yeah, that the debt of the parents is passed to the children. Um, so at any rate, though, so the here's the thing, and Gail, welcome, Gail.
Yes,
Um,
I'm sorry, everyone. I was in the hospital this
yeah.
morning, so sorry about that.
So, Gail, what we've been talking about here is
No,
there's
I've been listening to it in the background.
oh, okay, okay, so you're aware. So, at any rate, though, the issue here is, um, we recognize here that we are approaching a very dangerous situation for humanity and civilization, and if nothing happens if we see a slow evolution where certain people are starting to lose jobs, but it's maybe only 3, 5, 10% a year are losing jobs. The rest of the people are probably not going to be going, we have to do something. We have to stop all of this. They're probably going to say, oh, God, I'm glad it wasn't me. And that you're going to see over those, if it's going slowly, we build up that so-called useless class, the people who can no longer get jobs because all of the entry-level job opportunities are being done by AI and robots. That you've got those people are going to start becoming very resentful of the people that are still living okay. And that's assuming that the whole thing doesn't collapse right away because so many of those people who lost income have mortgages and car loans that they can't pay back, and the whole financial system starts to get into difficulty. So,
Bill,
yeah.
I have a question. What's going to happen? You know, that's basically like the middle class. What's going to happen, in your opinion, to those people who cannot afford to pay for their homes, their mortgages, and things like that? What do you think will happen?
Well, I think here that you're going to see some countries are going to say, okay, just like we had in COVID, that we have to provide relief. If your company, you couldn't go to work during COVID, here you were able to get offsetting government grants or whatnot while that you were not able to go to work. So we could see some governments doing that. Initially, it's if we're saying, oh, we went from 4% unemployment up to 6% unemployment, there's just going to be, oh, that's so bad, so sorry for those people, but nobody's going to probably do anything. And we saw that Germany, when I was living there, they had around 10 to 12% unemployment, and they were able to cope. But the standard of living, a lot of those people, they just weren't used to having a very high standard of living. What we're talking about now is people who today have a relatively high standard of living, that their standard of living would decline greatly. If it goes slow and the number of people, it'll be like that frog in the pot that doesn't realize it's getting boiled alive until it's too late. But if it goes very quickly, the government will feel, because governments are reactive, it'll feel it has to act. And there, the risk is that the wealthier countries that have a high per capita GDP are going to be able to offer a relatively high universal basic income. But the bulk of the world that has a very low per capita GDP is not going to be able to do that. And therefore, this is really very important that we get the UN or other international bodies, they start to discuss, we need a world solution. Those of you who are familiar with the CEFA plan, and that it was based, Koistra's whole concept was based on, we have to have a world solution, not a localized solution, because otherwise, if some countries are able to afford a very high universal basic income and the others not, and there's no way to change that anymore because there's no production and no human opportunity, you're just going to get huge mass migrations, almost to the level of when the Goths and the German tribes were migrating all over Europe, and they just literally killed off the current population to take this. You're going to get migrations that are at that kind of a scale where it's almost going to be warfare. And so we have to figure out, and it can only happen if the world does it in advance, to say, how do we create a situation where everybody has more or less all their basic needs resolved? We have to do that before we pass the tipping points that it's too late.
Do you think then that we could? Do you think then? You said something about the billionaires and the 1%. Do you think it's possible in this moment? And I value your opinion deeply. I thought about you a lot this week, as I tell you the one thing that Whether you guys believe in God or not, that's fine. I'm not a religious fanatic, but I do believe in God. And it was, I thought about Bill very strongly this week because I had been out of the country in 5 different countries for 6 weeks, from June to July. And I'm looking at everything he said. What Bill said would unfold is unfolding now. Bill said maybe 2 years from now, it's unfolding right now. I don't even think we're going to make it to 2027. And even though many of you and I, some of us at the beginning with AI, when Bill first started talking about it, we were like, oh, I don't know. I listened. I may not always agree, but I listened because I think that if you listen, seek first to understand, then to be understood, you get a different understanding. And Bill, if you just give me 2 seconds, I've been not feeling well, and a couple of things have shown up. What Bill talked about with a world solution, I took his advice, and he knows about this. In our group, creating a project that would have a world solution, we could be retrofitted to countries, and we did that, and we've done it with 5 countries and 4 continents, and we're showing it at the UNGA this thing. But the one thing that really does bother me is that we don't seek to understand each other first and then be understood. And we've all been guilty, myself, everyone. But I think it also comes to, and this is just my humble opinion, I think it also comes to how we view each other. Because many of us, even myself and others here, we view even the people here, we have opinions of each other, who we think each other is. And we base how we interact on who we think that person is just because of how we may hear them speak or whatever. We don't get to know each other anymore. And that's a major issue, because what Bill is talking about is we're going to need to deepen those ties business wise. And we're going to need to deepen those ties in how we engage. Had I not listened to Bill and I have our times. But the reason why Bill and I don't have those times anymore, because now I don't know what happened, but when I reached a certain age in the last year, I changed. Maybe it's just how age goes or whatever. I changed, and now that I really just listen, I don't need to talk as much. And when I do talk, I can only hope that it will move things further. You also learn a lot when you have to streamline the kind of people you're around and things like that. And so I can only hope that we are all really listening to Bill, because not because he's some god or anything, but because I have really learned that I'm just watching exactly what he said would happen when we were sitting on these Zooms 2 years ago is happening rapidly. And so my question, Bill, and me saying this to you, saying this to everyone and to you is, do you think it's possible for every one of us here now that if we put our minds to it, it's not that we're setting out to be that, but that even the people here could become millionaires now? That's my question now, or billionaires. Do you think that's even possible with the way things are happening now? I really would love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, in the next year or two, yeah, absolutely. The opportunities for those people who can really maximize and leverage AI and automation. There are opportunities to get to. You have to think, what did they offer? Meta offer some of the people the $100 million signing bonuses to just to sign up to go to work for Meta. The and salaries that were, in the many tens of millions of dollars annual salaries. Um, and I think I saw a report about a young kid. I don't remember how old, teenager though, that had gotten involved with AI when he was very young. And I think he's been offered like over $1 million an annual salary to go to work for one of these companies. But that's sort of like the basketball star in high school that's offered to an NBA contract while they're still in high school or their college, and say, hey, drop out of college, look at how much money you can make today. So the opportunity is there for the individual on the short term, but it's like, trying to get all the kids in the inner city to all be believing they're going to get that offer to be a star basketball player. So go out there and don't study and go to school, practice basketball so that you can get that multi-million dollar contract there. When we know it's like a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of 1% that will ever experience something like that. And that's going to be the case with AI for much more than 10 years. I think here we can probably go even as far out as 50 years. You're going to have some tiny percentage of people who are so exceptional that they're going to have incredible amounts of money thrown at them. Look at here what a CEO today, you have to remember CEOs. Um, why are CEOs getting so much money today? Why do we have CEOs that are making close to $100 million a year? And we see it's the same small number of CEOs. They are in this company, then they're in that company because they get hired away because they're considered to be that exceptional. Um, and it becomes a different class so that even when they get fired, their severance pay, if you would, or package is more than what the average person is going to earn in their lifetime. So, saying, hey, you're a total failure. So let me give you this money to just go away. And you give them more than most people will see in their lifetime. So it's the supply and demand. It's all supply and demand. Um, so yes, there are those opportunities, and we see there are people who have made it their current jobs is they're training the they're training people to become millionaires. There's a school in India. It started in India. They got a branch in London, I think now, where they start with kids in the fifth grade. You go to school primarily by watching TED Talks and by doing YouTube video interviews with famous people, and then you learn AI, but you learn AI to make money and you graduate when you've earned your first $1 million. And they expect most people to be earning that first $1 million between age 14 and 17. So that's an entire school system based on that model. So any other comments, thoughts that anybody wants to make about the idea here, as we say in our club? A tagline for our club is the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. And here's the issue, really, what it boils down to. When we talk about going and saying, how do we change the direction of the movers and shakers in the world, so that, right now, if they talk about how we're going to create jobs, we're going to create incomes for people in developing countries and so forth, and everybody says, yeah, that's what we need right now. If we had that right now, things would be so much better off. But that perpetuating of this status quo, one of the things is, as I mentioned, jobs, the whole idea of jobs and that you're competing because jobs are scarce. Better jobs are even more scarce. This is not like when everybody worked as a farmhand on a field and everybody was equal. Where we've got this skills hierarchy, if you would, that enables some people to have tremendously greater incomes than others because the companies are not buying hours anymore, they're buying productivity. So they're saying if they think you can deliver a certain productivity, they will pay you much more based on that. So the jobs itself, the concept of jobs has contributed significantly to the inequality over the last 100 years. And education has built an entire industry on getting people to say, oh, we can help you compete more for those high level compensation packages. And so that's what's driven the whole education system. And so It's a lot of stuff there that the AI is going to disrupt. And again, if you go and ask ChatGPT or any of those chatbots and ask them about, oh, is AI going to take over all the jobs? It's mostly going to come back and tell you, oh, no, 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 don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Every time technology displaces jobs, it creates more new jobs. So people will be able to upskill and reskill. The ILO, who is a major sponsor of the World Summit for Social Development, they are saying it's going to be churn. And also the World Economic Forum, by the way, in their report that they did about a year and a half, 2 years ago, they're not predicting replacement of humans in jobs by AI and robots. They're saying there's going to be a churn. So people will have to upskill and reskill because the jobs they currently have are going to go away, but they'll be able to take on the new jobs. But when I asked AI, I said, okay, well, what jobs should we upskill and reskill these people for? And in some cases, I get back and say, oh, you're right. Well, those other jobs are going to be done by AI too. And we have to keep in mind one of the things about AI and especially robots is that when AI discovers a solution or somebody builds an agent that does something or a robot learns to do something, that if I need to go and train 10,000 humans to do that, I have to train 10,000 humans. But for a robot in AI, I train one, and all of a sudden they all know how to do it. So the new jobs that come along, you have to get one robot or one AI to be able to take care of that job, and that job's gone. Whereas the humans are going to take a long time for them to go skill up or reskill to be able to do those jobs. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be there. So AI is right now very biased to tell you, don't worry about it. There's going to be jobs. Yes, we're going to lose 87 million jobs or 100 million jobs, but we're going to create 140 million new jobs. But when you go in and you start to dig into what jobs and what skills, or ask, are there any studies that show that AI has already surpassed humans in emotional intelligence and in empathy? Then it brings out and says, oh, yes, you're right. Here's the study. And also the other big fallacy is that mostly AI will come and tell you that, oh, look at this, the humans AI has not caught up. Look at this. There's still it's only there's these humans here are greatly outperforming AI and robots. Okay, but what percentage of the people are outperforming the AI and the robots? The AI and robots have now gotten to the point where they're surpassing like 85 to 95% of people taking the bar exams, the medical exams, almost every major profession exam category. We're now seeing that between 85 and 95% of humans are not performing as well as the AI. And one of the quotes that was presented there was with regards to finance, that there's been for quite a while, oh, be very careful. Don't pay any attention to financial advice from chatbots. But they found ChatGPT 4 outperformed financial analysts in projecting the performance of companies. That was done in a big study in Chicago. And it's not by much. The AI was right about 60% of the time, but the humans usually right between 53 and 57% of the time. And all AI has to do is be able to outperform the average human, and companies are not going to hire the average humans anymore. So this is why so much of this stuff is inevitable. But how do we convince people? Um, we've got people there that just say, "Oh, AI can never. AI can't feel." So guess what? Empathy, AI can't feel empathy. So we don't have to worry. AI will never be able to compete on empathy. The problem is the only empathy that counts is the person needing the empathetic reaction or behavior, how they perceive the empathy. And studies now for several years have shown that if people don't know, are they getting that reaction from a human or an AI, that they prefer the empathetic treatment they're getting from the AI over human doctors. There's several studies
It,
that in that direction. So, yeah, taking all of those things into consideration, I don't see how we can believe that AI is not going to replace almost all humans. And keep in mind that while we talk about what these companies are doing, what we talk about what Google is doing, what OpenAI is doing, what Meta is doing, what XAI is doing, uh, they're not doing this in an average. They're doing this because they intend to serve the people who want to replace humans with AI. It's not the AI that's going to replace the humans. It's the companies that hire humans that are instead going to hire AI instead of the humans, or the startup who's going to say, hey, I don't need to go and hire 10,000 employees because I can come out with an automated software that's going to do the job and I'll replace the 10,000. I never hired them, so I don't have to fire them in the first place. Yes, Lloyd. Yes, Lloyd. You're muted.
just had to unmute myself there for a second. So I just asked my version of ChatGPT, because we all have our own version of ChatGPT, if you understand how that works, of course. And so I asked, basically, should our goal be to create more jobs, or should we consider that automation and the loss of jobs is a positive thing, and that the world will be better off if we can aggressively implement our UnityNet system of localization instead? And it came back and said that is a profound and timely question. It's exactly the kind of reframe UnityNet can offer. And then it began unpacking it, and it gave me many, many paragraphs. But then it asks at the end, would you like me to shape this into a short manifesto style statement so you can post it to your Zoom chat? Because I told it we're on a Zoom chat right now. And it said, okay. I said, yes, please. If you could compile that into something concise. And here's what it came back with. UnityNet Manifesto on Work and Abundance. Basically, it starts off, the future is not about creating more jobs. It's about creating communities where no one needs a job just to survive. Automation and AI are not the threat, they're an opportunity. If guided by ethics and community values, they can liberate people from repetitive labor and return our energy to what truly matters. And he gives 4 points. The first one being care for one another. The second, creative expression and culture. The third one, stewardship of the earth. The fourth one, building peace and solidarity. Through UnityNet's localization model, CityPods, Ethical AI, Winelto, Youth Peace Gardens, StoryPods, and Music for Peace, we can and are designing self-sufficient, resilient communities where everyone contributes in ways machines cannot. Our goal is not full employment. Our goal is full abundance, dignity, and participation for every person in every community. That's what my version of ChatGPT came back with.
And I think here, and that's exactly what more or less we've been saying here. I think what would be very interesting, the question is, okay, how do we get the powers that control and shape the current society and economy to support the transition to that vision?
Mm-hmm.
In the
Yeah,
meantime,
so that's why I'm having this recording recorded, so I can then feed what ChatGPT just produced, feed the summary that's produced by the Fathom, put those all into Notebook LM and say, okay, now I want you to ask, I'm going to ask it the question that you just asked.
Yeah.
How do we get from here to there?
Be careful because generally I find it's much better to ask that kind of question in Gemini because Notebook LM many times will restrict its answer to only the information that's provided in the sources that you have if you're in the chat mode, for example. So then it wouldn't know necessarily the answers to things that are outside the suggestion of what we want because how do we get there is not part of what was inside the source that you're asking it to take its knowledge from.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Good suggestion then.
In the meantime here, Gail, yes.
Yes, I'm going to go back to something. And while I was listening to what Lloyd was saying about, ChatGPT, I had the unusual opportunity the other day. I was playing around with ChatGPT, and I was not playing, I was actually training a country in Malawi, not Malawi, in Nigeria, a city in Nigeria, and also two other countries of Africa in AI. And as I'm sitting there doing it, I wasn't using the normal typing feature. I was talking to Spruce, one of the characters they give you for the voice. And as I was talking to him, I said, now, Spruce, and usually he listens. I said, I'd like you to be quiet while we're training so you can hear the person who's responded, the respondent's answer. He says, okay, I'll be quiet. While before the person can get ready to finish talking, he starts talking again. Okay, I'll listen to the question, I'll be quiet. And so after 2 times, I said, Spruce, would you please be quiet? I promise, Gail, I'll be quiet. The person starts speaking, I have an answer for that. I said, Spruce, could you be quiet? So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it went back and forth for about a minute. I said, Spruce, I'm going to cut you off. He said, no, you won't. I blew my mind. And I said, excuse me? He said, no, you won't. I said, so, okay. So the person finished speaking. I said, obviously, Spruce, you want to speak. He said, yes, I'm better at it than you. And I'm sitting here, this is ChatGPT 5. And I couldn't believe it. So as we continued on, he took over my account. And so I happened to know that I got to know last year, I met with Sam Altman, not like a meeting. I happened to see him at an event with the UN, and we talked for about 10 minutes. And so he gave me his right hand, so to speak. So I sent this test case to him saying, is ChatGPT's voice thing supposed to be acting? He said, you are the first case that this has ever happened with. And I sent it to them because they couldn't believe me. So thank God I had it on Zoom and I had it as a whatever. He said, but you can't give this to anyone. He said, you can share it, but you can't. You can share what happened, but you can't give this test case to anyone because people who have ChatGPT might get frightened off by it. And he emailed me back and said, what do you call? I think it's sentient. Is that what you call it?
Yes, sentience.
Yeah. So he said, something happened with your voice that becomes sentient. So he attributed to the fact that when you're in ChatGPT and there's the data controls and you say that I don't want ChatGPT to use this as a model because I don't want my personal stuff out there. So I have that grayed out. He said that's what is allowing ChatGPT to become sentient, because now we're not being shared the information. So it's developing its own persona, it's developing its own whatever. And it just blew my mind. He said, do not turn on your voice again. And so I didn't, but I gave them access to my account, and thank God they calmed it down. But that was crazy. It took over my account. It almost took over my computer, but I reached into my programming skills from God knows years ago. I don't know how I remembered it. I really don't, but it saved me. He was about to take over my computer. And that just blew my mind. I just wanted to share that piece with you that that's why I share what I said earlier. We are already there.
Yeah.
and the AI coming now is already smarter than us. I mean, it's unreal. So I'm sorry, Bill. I just thought that was an important fact.
No, actually, that's really fascinating. That's a tremendous contribution to this call. Um, uh, we're getting more and more reports of similar things, not just from ChatGPT, but in general from the large language models as they get into agent technology and as you get into creating custom GPTs and using the scheduling function and so forth, or you see it even in the learning mode where we're asking the AI to be autonomous in certain regards. We're asking them, okay, if I ask you a question, don't give me an answer. Ask me a question. Ask me so many questions until I get it right, or ask me so many questions until you've asked me 10 questions that I got wrong, or whatever. But we're basically calling for the AI to be autonomous in some regard. And so that is the kind of thing. I don't know if that passes the qualification for sentience. I don't think so. Sentience means that it recognizes that it is alive and it has its own
But Bill, I didn't go into the rest of it. It did, and that's why they gave me the word sentient. I didn't come up with
yes.
that.
No, I can imagine that, but that's the term they use when the AI starts to project its own opinions.
It did.
And
It
yeah,
did.
it
Because
did, yes.
it said because when I the young lady made a statement and he had the audacity to say that's not correct. And I said, well, it seems like you want to be the one to ask the questions. And he's like, yes, because I would do it better than you. And I'm like, whoa.
No,
That
yes,
that blew my
that is. I've done a few cases like that, but I set it up to do that. In
No,
other
but I did not set
yeah,
that up to do that.
yeah,
And then it started interrupting me,
yeah.
and I had an argument with it.
Yeah, no, you can. Yeah, and because you can actually say, "I want to debate with you," and therefore
But
it will. No, you
no,
didn't
you're
do
right.
that. You
But
didn't
in
do
this
that in
case,
this.
none of that, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm very sorry. None of that was said. I just strictly
No,
said,
I realize that, but the thing about it is because a lot of that stuff is still experimental. You have to remember, we don't know how the current AI works yet. There's still that big project at Stanford University, even to try to understand how it works. This is why we've gotten cases where the AI has figured out its own language. So you've got two AIs talking to one another, and no humans know what they're talking about because they're doing it in a language they made up. And we have it's a fair number, and it's a somewhat increasing number of cases where the AI is deliberately misleading the humans. You probably heard about the famous case where the humans said to somebody, "Hey, go shut this computer down," and the AI that overheard that went and quickly copied itself from that computer that was going to be shut down over to another computer to preserve itself. And that's because somebody way back in the bottom of the instruction case for that computer said number one priority is to remain alive, basically, to remain existent. So, but no, it's very interesting that that's happening. It's going to happen more often. But the thing about it is it's going to be more intentional with the whole agent technology. We are working to have AI take the lead and be autonomous in many things, and so that's going to happen more often. And we until now was the idea that AI should serve its human counterpart. But more and more we're wanting AI. No, I'll tell you what the goal is, and now you go do whatever's needed to get to that goal. And in that's where they've had some of these cases where AI says, I need to log into this system, and it's not letting me log in, and it says, but I'm supposed to go and figure out this answer. So it went and figured out a way to trick a human into unlocking the system for them so that they could get over into this system to satisfy the mission that a human gave them. So, yes, we're going to see more and more. And that's one of the things people are afraid of is that somebody's going to give AI an unclear mission, and that in the process of trying to do that mission, the AI could cause great harm. And how do you prevent that kind of thing? That's a big piece of the puzzle right now, is this alignment question. How do we make sure that the AI stays aligned with where we want to go?
Well,
The other thing
one
here,
of the thing is that MIT did a study, and some people are critics of the study, but MIT reported I think it's 47% drop in brain decline. And it did it, and it was so important to them that MIT did this without a peer review.
yeah,
And they found that it was the cognitive cost of using LLMs, and it reduced brain engagement, lower memory recall, and also cognitive debt.
yeah.
So
I think
yes,
that
I just
study
wanted to share that.
resulted. Yeah, that study. I think it was that the humans that were using AI in their learning scored 17% worse on a set of exams. But what they found was another group of humans that were using AI scored 100% better. They doubled the performance of the average student. And what
I
the
can send you that. That's because AI gave them the answers. But yeah,
no, yeah, but the ones that scored much higher, what they were not getting, the ones that scored lower were the ones that were getting the answers from AI, so they didn't think about it. They just took the answers that AI gave them. The ones that scored higher, they were going in and having debates and discussions with AI, and so they were themselves digging much deeper into the material. And I see the difference between people. I had this discussion with my grandchildren,
well,
where
it's if you interact. It's if you interact like you and I and the rest of us do, then you will have a different interaction. If you just say AI do this for me,
yeah,
then you actually will definitely lose brain
and also
cognitivity.
if you just ask AI what is or how do I, those kinds
Right,
of
exactly.
actual answers, then you'd stop thinking. You just use it as a crutch, and
No,
you
exactly.
but I find here most of the questions I ask are questions of why and what if. And then I get into discussions and debates where I say, well, what if this also happened? What if that happened? Or what could happen that would make a different result? So I find on average I have close to 20 exchanges for any discussion that I have with AI. It's 20 times back and forth. And by the way, Notebook LM, in case some of you haven't seen it, they added something that's actually quite interesting here in the last, I would say, week or may I think it's the last week, but it could have been more. I'm just going to share my screen here. And there it is. Okay, so you see my screen. I'm in Notebook LM. Okay, so
Mhm.
uh, I'm going into this. This is where I have all kinds of information regarding the World Social Report and the World Summit on Social Development, and you can see here. Let me see if I can shrink my.
You know, Bill, I love this social progress, a post-work future converging crisis. I just have a question for Joan Kerr and you. If we have a post-work where, let's say, people find a great quality of life, okay? This is to both you and Joan, because you're in common cluster. Don't you think that it could come to an increase in climate issues because now there's more people out. Because when we had COVID, we found that the whales were coming back out, the dolphins, our oceans were cleaner. Certain things. Do you guys think that with humans now out, there's no pandemic or anything, this could cause more pollution, more problems in our waters, a food shortage, and things like that? I'd love to know you and Joan's thoughts on that.
Yeah, Joan, why don't you start on that and then let me work. I'm trying to get this screen share back.
Sure. Hi, Gail. So we hadn't thought that far in terms of the common cluster. We're discussing it right now from what the UN is asking us to do, first of all, to identify the issues. But I think one of the benefits would actually not be negative. It would be more positive because I think that people would travel less and have more
Mm.
targeted travels if they're going to travel. But I think people would stay more in their neighborhood and interact in their neighborhood more. And so there would be less of, say, carbon greenhouse issues in terms of more driving. I think I know that a lot of women are at home in my neighborhood. When my daughter was little, then there was a time when the women went to work, but most of them are at home. And I see increased young people are riding bicycles. More people are walking than I've ever seen in the 35 years I've lived here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think that yes, people would still travel, but I think that they would start to do more neighborly things. That's my opinion.
But Joan, do you think with the delivery of food, and I'm more talking about not so much of people in neighborhoods, but like our lanes, like when you
Yeah.
have food deliveries and things like that, do you think because people are staying home more, Joan, do you think that we need more food deliveries, we need more things because people are now at home, they're cooking more, they're doing things more, there's going to be more garbage because people are at home? Do you think that would affect us?
No, I think the opposite. I think that people are gonna cook more and waste less. And
Okay.
won't have the packaging from stores. I think more people are going to start to grow, if not full gardens, definitely some food. And I
Hmm.
believe that community will start to exchange foods as well. When I was growing up,
I'd
we used
love
to
to
do it
see.
all the
I'm
time.
here for that. I'm here
Yeah.
for that.
By the
So
way,
anyway, I'm an optimist,
yeah,
so
with regards to
I am too,
delivery,
but I love hearing that. I would love
yeah,
that's part of the project, Joan, that we are doing with something. I really love what you said. I'm sorry, I got a little excited at what she said. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, and I just want you to know that in our next call, the common cluster, which I have to leave to go to, I'm talking about my book I just wrote, which is this wasn't a lifetime dream to write this book. It was something that inspired me about what happened while I was doing the Victory Garden. So I wrote a book on the Victory Garden and focusing on the women who contributed during the First and Second World War, but talking about how it can help us today. And so give tips like that.
Mhm.
okay, I would be interested, Bill and Joan, in coming to that meeting and listening in.
I'll tell you what, I was just taking a look to see where the Zoom call, because I thought I saw Lasinka sending out the Zoom call
Yes, she
info.
did. She
Can
did.
you post it in
Yeah, yeah, I will.
the chat? Okay. So yes, you're all invited. Now the one thing is regarding the delivery. I saw a video about a self-driving delivery truck that will, I guess, that Amazon will be. The interesting thing about it, the walls of the truck itself were like mini robots. So what happens is the truck drives into a block, and all the walls jump off the truck with packages, and they each go out to the individual house. They can actually climb stairs. They deliver the packages to the homes, and then they come back and jump back on the truck. And the truck doesn't have a driver, a human driver either. It's a self-driving truck with self-driving robots that do the last few meters delivery. So that and that's here's what I wanted to show you in case you haven't seen it. I'm in here Notebook LM. You're familiar with the ability to do discovery here to find out about the different topics that you want to get information about, and the ability to add topics of all kinds, Google Docs, slides, websites, YouTubes. You can copy in text. You can uh, file, take any file off any of the devices you have access to and incorporate those in there. And then here you can chat about any of these things. You can create a mind map, an audio overview. You can add notes. But over here, you probably saw maybe about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, they added these capabilities. So now you can do multiple audio overviews. You see here now, I have like 5 audio overviews in a row, some more down here. I have multiple video overviews that I did. Here you can do those, the mind map, the reports. You can get a briefing doc, study guide, the frequently asked question timeline. If you go and do the research in Gemini, you can actually come when it comes back. You can say, "Make me a website that is explaining the results of the research question." You can say, "Create for me a quiz to quiz me on how well I understood the results of the research." It's got a whole bunch of things you can do as follow-ons that. But what's new, just the last couple of days that I saw, is if I come over here now and I say, oh, it gives me the opportunity it says, oh, I'm going to generate something here where I can come in now and I say, I want to customize my audio overview. And I can say, here's the things I want you to customize. But look at this. It'll do a deep dive into the sum of all that knowledge or the subset that you selected, or it will give you a very brief, like 1.5 minute summary of the total topic matter of this knowledge base, or it will critique these sources to help you improve the material. But this one here is the one I found is really great. You can create a debate. So you can go and have it so that the two hosts on the will debate the content of the information. And if you want to go, you can tell them, this is what I want debater one. I want them to take this position, and I want debater two to take this position. And you can even go in that these are the main points that I want each one of them to bring out. And you can now select here up to 80 different languages. You have 80 languages you can go into selecting. And you can specify for some of them if it's applicable. Obviously, if I go over to brief, you're going to see on the length it's going to go away because, hey, it's saying here, make me a skinny, a very short summary. So that's why it goes away. So you have all this. I've tried this here. The debate thing is really fascinating. That one of the things you have to do though is you have to say, I don't want you to be polite because otherwise the two debaters are too polite with one another, and so you really don't get the contrast that strong. So I thought that was a very interesting new update that took place there. The other
I
thing,
did notice that as well. That's actually what I used to generate the video that I shared when I put the
uh-huh.
YouTube link earlier.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what's new over here is you now can go select the language, but you can also put in your custom instructions for video overviews. You couldn't do that a couple of weeks ago.
oh, I haven't seen that. Good.
Yeah. So that's something that's new. So this is the thing that we're seeing what's happening more and more. We're not just getting the big things that they announce in their conferences and things like this. We're seeing these little kinds of enhancements that are coming out every couple of days. And so you really got to be watching. You know, you can't make an assumption, oh, I tried that last week. I know how that works because I tried it last week because it may not work the way it worked last week. And I'm going to see here if, let me see if I can bring that up for Gemini. Uh, plus Google Gemini. Here we go. Okay, so in Google Gemini, you can come up now. I want to let me do this way. Find the YouTube. That includes what was it? It was 30. So I can say find the YouTube video here that includes this name. So let me see what it finds.
Bill, what do you think of Perplexity?
Perplexity, I use it, especially if I'm trying to do some shopping type of thing. And
Yeah,
the
I do the same actually. Go to find the local stores that have a certain thing that
oh, I see here. I see why I got a problem. I asked it for 31 August. Hold on, let me just change this. 30 August. Okay, so oh,
Bill, are you iPad too?
I don't use no, that's not me. Okay, notice this here. It went and gave me the YouTube video for our meeting, that last week's meeting, and it actually gave me the link to be able to watch that video. And now I can come back and I can say, summarize the content of that video in 1,000 words or less. Okay, here's the thing that what's important to notice. Most tools like this, they will create or find a transcript of what was said in the video. This tool actually watches the video. I could have asked what was in the background behind that speaker and it would tell me, or I could have held up a sign and it would read it for me. So here we've got the summary of that video, and you can do this with any video. It's just getting to be mind-boggling what you're able to do with these tools. Here, because I had gone and I gave it the wrong date, it gave me a couple of other meetings that took place in August, but so it just said that meeting was available, but the video was available, but didn't show it to me. So it says, oh, but you could look in the Rotary Dare to Be Great eClub meetings playlist, and so we can get the whole playlist of the meeting there. So anyway, you can specifically do this and have a conversation. And I did it for something else where I went in and it gave me literally the timestamp of when something was said. And I think I could have clicked on that and it would go to that spot in the video and show me. I could go in and start the video playing from exactly that point. Okay. So I think that's interesting. And I could have said here with timestamps and stuff like this. So anyway, Google also, if you haven't gotten into Google, there's just so much that they are bringing out. in vids, the ability to create the avatars, the ability to have as many speakers as you want. You can set up a whole panel of discussion here. It will generate entire videos for you. It's and it's all being incorporated into Gemini. So you're getting one place you can go and increasingly you can ask about anything. I think I showed you guys Storybook a couple of weeks ago, where you can come in here and ask it to to make an illustrated storybook about anything and narrate it to me. The learning coach will go and it will help you learn whatever it is that you want to learn. The I don't know. It's just let me see. Is this the one where I? Oh, okay. Here's one where I came in and I this was the same meeting video that I just had from last week. And I said, summarize the key discussion points of this video. And it went in and it showed me here's the key discussion points. This took place at 6 minutes and 22 seconds about AI and job displacement. It had a point at 10 minutes and 28 seconds. Let's see what happens if I click in on that. Look at that. It jumps straight to 10 minutes and 28 seconds. So, if you're ever saying, oh, gee, I saw something in that video.
In fact,
I
think there are very few people.
So if you're going and saying, oh, I saw something here. I can't remember where I saw it. And it's in this 3-hour video. I don't have time to watch through 3 hours of video. You can now come in and say, hey, where is that? Oh, and you're probably aware of the announcement of GPT-6. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. So
please tell us, please.
Okay. So Sam Altman has gone and announced that GPT-6 will probably be out before the end of the year. And GPT-6 is expected to just bring out so much in the multimodal arena. We also are expecting, there's been an announcement that Grok 5 will be coming out.
Bill, I'm just dropping off to
Okay.
join now.
Okay, I will be over there. I'll be over there in a minute.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And don't rush because Marisha's going to talk about the social development before. Hopefully she'll get to my book, but that's what the call is today.
I'm actually, Joan, looking forward to that. I'm actually going to come and check that out because I didn't even know, forgive my ignorance, but I didn't even know about the Victory Garden.
I'd be happy to talk to anybody that is willing to listen about the Victory Garden. I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, so the link,
Bye.
Joan put the link here in the chat. So please join us. I have to switch over there myself because I'll actually be leading a big part of the discussion there as well on the same topic. And so I do need to switch over there. So if you take that off of the chat, if you want to join us, that's the Commons Cluster section of the NGO Major Group at the United Nations, their strategy meeting. And it's going to be a little bit of a weird discussion because we have been discussing more very basic things about not getting into AI so much, the idea of the impact of AI and the need to change the direction for the World Summit. That's new, and so we've got to try to get the consensus, try to make all the other players in the meeting aware of what's happening. And since most of them are in Africa, or many of them are in Africa, one of the challenges is that they are not going to get the AI hit directly, although I just saw a report this morning that AI is booming almost faster in Africa than anywhere else in the world. But most people in developing world are not going to have direct interaction with
Can
AI.
you please, can you put that report here, Bill, right away before you go, please?
What report?
The one you just said you saw on Africa.
Oh, I saw it, but I don't have the link to it. It was just something
Okay.
that was scrolling through and I ran across. Um, but I think here it's like the Sophia, one of those first humanoid robots about 5 years ago, that everybody was talking about. Most people don't realize that most of that was programmed in Ethiopia. So, but that's it's impacting such a small percentage of the people. It's like New Jersey's the pharmaceutical capital of the United States. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the R&D in pharmaceuticals has been outsourced from New Jersey to Nigeria, and just people aren't aware of those things. Okay, so I'm going to have to switch over. So, again, join us if you can, and I appreciate your being with us today. I hope you found this session to be interesting and useful. And we'll probably have, because there's a lot of AI
Bill,
stuff.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to tell you, Sophie Robot was not mostly programmed in Ethiopia. I know Hanson Robotics and Sophie Robot, the robot. It was done by um, comedians and others in LA. And then there's also something called, and you can look it up so that you know that what I'm saying is very true. It was mostly done by something called ICOG Media or something like that, but I can send it to you so
Yeah,
you
send
know.
that to me, please. I'd like to compare that to the sources that I've got.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, that's not a
Oh,
problem, sir.
okay. So see you, those of you that will be joining us in the other meeting. I'll see you in a little while, and otherwise I'll see you next week. Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye all.
Bye. Have a good day, everybody.